Happy to have everybody on board today. We have a couple of house rules that I'll go over, but for starters, I'll be joined today with my guest, Steffan Berelowitz, the CEO and founder of BlueTrain Mobile. He has a fantastic presentation that, matter of fact, is so great. I really want him to have a lion's share of time with everyone today, being the mobile expert and somebody that can really educate and acclimate us to how to make mobile work. So a couple of house rules for everyone. First of all, feel free to add any comments to us on Twitter. I can be reached, and love feedback, by the way, at Byron White, which you can see there. And if you have feedback or any follow-up questions from Steffan or his team, you can connect with them on Twitter via BlueTrain Mobile. Regarding questions, we love questions. We're going to talk today for about 30 or 40 minutes. With you. I'm only going to talk for about 5 that you'll see in a second. And we love fielding questions. So try to put your questions into the chat box that everybody has access to, and I'll moderate those questions. I'll actually respond to those questions as Steffan is speaking to try to answer any questions you have. If anybody needs to have a quick answer to something, I'll try to help there. And so without further ado, I'm going to dive right into today's presentation, and then I'm going to turn things over to Steffan. So let's go at it. So for starters, we're going to talk a little bit about what is content marketing. I always enjoy beginning these webinars with a thorough explanation of what content marketing is. In about 5 or 6 slides, we'll blow through that quickly. Then I've assembled a couple of facts and figures that I think set the tone for both some good questions that people may have in the end, and some lead into what Steffan is going to be talking about today, and then we'll dive right into his presentation. So without further ado, just a couple quick minutes on the art of content marketing. So what is content marketing? It's really the art of listening to the wants and needs of your customers. And as I've spoke about 30 times in the last year at various conferences and presentations, and I always tell everyone, this is by far the hardest thing to do. We need some revelation and some breakthrough on how to listen to customers. I think that is very overlooked in this marketplace. A lot of us, are marketeers rather blindly and guessing what the wants and needs are. But I think the next revolution and the next revelation we're going to find is not just listening to the conversations, which is certainly happening into your stocks, but the real question is what's next? How do we listen to customers' needs? How do customers drive our marketing strategy and our products and our services? I think that's an interesting topic that we'll look forward to talking a lot more about in 2012. But of course, content marketing is a science, and it's a science of delivering them great content in a compelling way. And you need a diverse portfolio of assets these days. Articles and websites, of course, are helpful, but you need to print books, which is one of the secrets I think we're going to find out very quickly in the search engine optimization world. We're going to find out that becoming a published authority in your industry helps a great deal with the content that you publish on your website, that content getting picked up by the search engines, getting followed and read by other people. It's time to look very closely at the publishing industry and printing books, particularly printing on demand. We'll have a few announcements on that in 2012. But it's a diverse portfolio, sure. But it's also catching that are orbiting feeds, of course, where mobile kicks in. With many different vehicles and platforms by which you can really look at catching people that are way beyond your website, which is something everybody needs to come to grips with. We also need to, of course, provide information that people want and need, and that means we can't ram our products and services down people's throats any longer. No one wants to be sold to, so we need to provide help, and we need the latest and greatest technology that's targeting people in a geocentric way, with an interest-generated way, and we need to look closely at what that quality information really is. Campaigns, A/B testing. I like telling people, and I've made this statement over the years, if you're not testing your web pages, you're living in the dinosaur age. I was out speaking at the conversion conference, recently, and it just there is a perpetual glass ceiling, I'm afraid, with people that are doing too much testing. There's almost these radical extremes of people that look at an isolated single page to say, okay, my whole marketing world revolves around the conversion of this page. It certainly is not the case, and people are overdoing that. And when I'm at the conversion conference, I make a case to do less testing and more quality content creation. But with everybody, it's probably the opposite. It's probably you need to do more testing to really find out what works. And so there you have it. But and the key, I think, is just finding this efficient path. As I've been working on my marketing plans for 2012, I find myself really crossing a lot of things off the list that haven't worked in the past and are not really moving the needle with engagement. It's hard to do that. These are tough decisions that we all have to make at this time when we're planning for budgets in the future, but it really is time to figure out what really worked and what is the best use of your time, your energy, and your efforts, and what's the quickest path to engagement. And I assure you that quality content will be the centerpiece. It's a big process, content marketing, and it starts with planning, and we've developed hundreds of plans and strategies for customers in the last decade or so, particularly in the last year. It's heavy-duty work, but more and more now, I've really come to believe that it's really also most importantly of all these 6 things you see on here, it's just really creating a steady stream of high-quality content. That's what's really working, and of course distributing that content to multiple platforms, including mobile, which is a perfect. But of course it's tracking performance and content performance, and that's something that everybody needs to learn how to do. Tools and technology that you can get free now or access. We have a light version of Board Vision that's amazing. So I'd encourage you to just look at some of these out there that allow you to track the impact and ROI of content that you publish site or even content you publish in the social sphere or anywhere else. So let's look at some facts here. So, surprisingly, I was kind of interested to learn this, is about 25% of the actual mobile users out there are smartphone users. That was pretty interesting to me as I was digging through some data here. But of course, not surprisingly, I think there are only 7 billion people in the world, and there are 4 billion mobile phones out there in use. That's pretty interesting. That should be a wake-up call to us all. But here's the slide, I think, and this is what we're going to challenge Steffan today. We've got some issues here, and this is my own perception of how I use phones, but, and I don't use phones for games necessarily, but I certainly use phones to check weather, or particularly wherever I'm traveling or where I will be going in the next 5 to 7 days. Mobile, maps are key. I'm finding I'm using MapQuest now to actually get phone numbers of wherever I'm going, because Google's hit or miss with giving me the information I need, whereas MapQuest is zeroing me in on a location and a phone number, which is just much more handy for me. Social networking, no surprising there. We're all following Twitter. We're seeing what's going on. We're checking in with Facebook. Apps are making that all possible. Of course, we're carrying our music around, but business really isn't on here, and I think it needs to be. And one reason it's probably not on there is the lack of Mobi sites designed and the difficulty in making transactions, through a smaller mobile device. So there's some complexities here, but I think connection, engagement, and business conversations, there's a lot of room for growth and opportunity here as the mobile market expands. So this is kind of interesting, and no surprise here, really, if you think about it, with so many mobile phones. But it looks like in 2015 and 2012, we're going to see sort of in 2013, we're going to see the intersection of basically mobile usage overtaking the desktop, and that's pretty interesting if you think about it. It's a little scary, but we need to think this through and to really imagine ourselves making transactions and getting the information we want and need in a very small mobile phone. So we'll see how that pans out, but the stats are quite interesting. And of course, the mobile marketing spend is in the favor of Steffan and what he does for a living. But the net of it is we've seen a pretty radical spike from 2009 about to almost 2.3 billion estimated for 2013. So everyone's into this. It'd be much more interesting to see if we're looking at, what the B2B spend is mobile versus B2C, and whether what percentage is big brands spending that money versus small to medium-sized businesses. So it's going to be interesting to dig deeper, and I'm sure Steffan's going to help us with that.
Great. I'm really excited to be here.
And we can't hear you, Steffan, just so you know.
All right, terrific. Thank you very much, Byron.
There you are.
Yeah. Okay, terrific.
Can hear you.
Good to be here. Just want to say hello to everyone. And Byron, just also want to check in with you. Are you able to see my screen just fine?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, excellent. So I'm excited to be here and looking forward to sharing some great ideas today with you about some perspectives on the mobile and best practices that we'll be sharing with you, some good stats and facts about the growth of the mobile web. We'll show you some good examples and talk a little bit about content for the mobile web. How do you create good content? What are some methods and ideas about how you can create effective mobile website as well. So I think we could line up and we'll get started in a moment. Byron, just time to give me an idea of how long we should go until we do some at the end.
If the knowledge you have, great. I would, as you need to get all the information that you need. Looking at the questions that come in and helping to moderate those at the end. But I would try to, 30 minutes here to go through your presentation. I wanted to show some stuff offline as well. So have at it. 30, 40 minutes. We have an hour. So.
Okay, great. Excellent. So we'll go through this, and as Byron, we'll also have an opportunity to show you some websites as well. I have an emulator running on my laptop, and I'll be able to share that with you, and we'll be able to look at some mobiles together. So we'll get started. So one thing I want to do is just sort of set the context with you, and while we go along with the presentation, I wanted to mention that I think Byron had highlighted this earlier, but you can follow along and share your thoughts and comments at Twitter #29, and you can also share thoughts and comments at each of our Twitter handles below. When I think about the mobile web, one of the things I like to think about is the history of marketing, technology, and innovation. And it's always interesting to think about a new technology in terms of how it might fit in historically. This is one of my favorite pictures when I think about technology innovation. This is actually a picture of a telegraph from the 1800s. And one interesting fact there is that actually the telegraph was used to send offers. It wasn't a communication device between 2 points, but it was actually used off all of marketing. In 1864, the telegraph was used to send investment offers that went to wealthy Americans. And so this is an example of very early innovation. But as we think about marketing technology, I want to kind of put mobile marketing in context and sort of describe it fitting into a history of innovations that we've seen. So sort of went back and thought a little bit about what marketing technology innovation has looked like, particularly going way back to the days of the early days of marketing. So in the very beginning, you might say that was born, or marketing content found its first home in flyers and brochures, advent of the printing press. The 1800 magazines, the 1800s newspapers. We started seeing telegraph, as I mentioned in the prior slide, in 1864 with the first marketing that went out by telegraph. By the late 1800s, we started seeing things like billboard rentals, and then eventually in the 1920s, radio advertising had its birth. It was quickly followed by television advertising, and then moving on to some database marketing and telemarketing that we're probably all too familiar with. And fast forwarding into webbing in the 90s, which has in recent years, as we know, transitioned into social media marketing. And it's hard to believe, but Facebook and Twitter were both founded only just a few years ago and are now so much a part of what we do. Now, what about each of these different media, and we look at the advent of mobile marketing really taking off in 2010 and now really hitting its stride this year in 2011. One of the things I want to point out to you is how very different each of these technologies are. And if you can think about sending a marketing message in Morse code and then sending a marketing message in a radio broadcast, these are just tremendously different media that require us to think very differently about how we're going to be marketing. And similarly, if we look at modern marketing tools, whether it's a 140-character Twitter post or it's the full marketing website, one thing I'm going to mention now, and we'll return to this theme during the presentation, that we really need to think how we're marketing when we think about mobile. It may feel like we're able to see similar content or use our marketing tools in similar ways on mobile, but in actuality, it's very important to realize that this is a whole new show, and that marketing is really going to change all of the rules on mobile, that the rules have changed, the tools and methods that are going to be successful are completely new, and that there's also an enormous opportunity in this space for people who are able to innovate. And speaking of opportunities and perils of innovation, I thought it might be fun for us to think a little bit about how opportunities and risks do present themselves at times of change in technology in general. And so on the right side, if we start there, we'll see a bunch of names that are, enormously familiar, powerful brands of yesteryear, brands that many of you who were using technology or were familiar with computers in the 70s and 80s would have been very familiar with. Atari, of course, coming out with incredibly popular gaming platforms, also moving into home computing, Tandy and home computing, digital, such an incredibly admirable computer company, Commodore and Wang. These are all major brands, but for one reason or another, they weren't able to make a major shift from one paradigm to another. And I think whether you listening in on are a marketer who's thinking about both content and technology, I think the lessons of these times of change is that it's very important to embrace innovation, to think of it in a new and creative way, and be able to sustain a process of innovation as we continue to learn, grow, and adapt. And on the left side are two brands that we can definitely see and admire as brands and companies that have managed to transition through the years and stay very much at times. Of course, Apple being a great example of tremendous innovation, tremendous leadership, the ability to think very far forward and to really take a leadership role in establishing the next paradigm, certainly in the mobile world. But IBM also, a company that has been around for many, many decades and has seen and taken a leadership role in everything from electric typewriters to mainframe computers to mini computers to personal computers, and continues today as an incredibly successful and highly innovative organization in the corporate space. So I think the lesson here is really to try and embrace the changes that we're going through in marketing technology and really adopt them as best we can as an opportunity for innovation. The other message I think that's important for us to understand is let's not underestimate the size of the change. While many of us are now using our smartphones and browsing the web and using apps and message and email, of a sudden change in the way in which people communicate and use technology. And we can see some adoption numbers here. 83 million people on the mobile web in 2011, and projected to grow dramatically to more than 200 million. And these are numbers just for the United States. As Byron alluded to earlier, there's another sort of magic number and magic date that is coming up quite soon, and that is the date on which there will be more users of the Internet and the web on mobile devices than desktop. And that date is rapidly approaching. And while I think that date is important as a global trend, I think what's also interesting is just to see how dramatically we are increasing our use of the mobile web relative to the use of desktop. And so as individuals, we're also sort of seeing our own pie chart individually increase quite dramatically. Some other statistics to look at. If you look at the share breakdown of devices, you will see that Apple continues to have in the United States a very strong market share. Android, I think, has continued to show dramatic growth as well. It's important to point out, I think, at this point that, and for quite a while, that Android has been activating more devices week after week than Apple has across all of its various devices. So it's been growing its market share much faster than Apple has. And then BlackBerry's market share has been declining quite significantly. As we look at statistics among our customers on their mobile websites, what we've noticed is that almost no one who is using a BlackBerry 5 operating system is browsing the mobile web at all. And there are folks who do browse on BlackBerries. However, those are few as compared to other devices. This is a wonderful, I wanted to share with you of the great land rush of the American past at a time when folks were being encouraged to move and land was cheap and people were able to buy massive tracts of land for really pennies on the dollar. And one of the things I for us to think about as we think about the mobile web is that we are really in that land rush now, and there are enormous opportunities for us to stake a huge claim on this new ground. And I think the people who move early into this space, the early adopters, are going to be able to establish space for your brands, the brands that you're marketing for, the brands that you're creating content for. And there are opportunities to potentially create the big brands of tomorrow in this space. the rules have changed dramatically. So I really view the mobile as a brush. And if you're near the front of the pack, you're going to have a big advantage just from being early. Getting a little feedback that my voice might be a little bit soft, so I'm going to just try and switch mics for one moment. And Byron, you can let me know if there's a problem as I switch. All right, Byron, are you able to hear me okay?
I kind of liked it before.
Okay.
But
tell you what, I'll speak up a little bit.
The echo was gone. Oh, somebody says this is better.
Okay.
So
Let me. I'll speak up a little bit louder.
Sounds better now. Someone's saying.
Okay,
We're getting good feedback. Forget about my feedback. Good. It's the users are saying sounds better now.
All right. Well, just chat in a couple, and I'll try and pick up the volume a little bit just to make sure that everyone can hear me just fine. And let me know if this is good to you in a short while.
Great to me.
Okay,
Someone
great.
did say, yeah. Shout it out.
All right, will do. Okay, so let me share some additional stats with you about the mobile web. These are some stats that really blew me away when I read them, and probably chief among them is how dramatically mobile search is increasing. So particularly, this is directly from Google and their own stats, the dramatic growth of search. So I think it's in the past 12 months that Google has seen an increase of 400% in their in the amount of search that's happening on mobile. What's also interesting to see is that lots of people are taking action with mobile search. So 9 out of 10 searches have taken action. That might be clicking through to a website. It might be quite innovative and new these days, which is just a direct click to call from an ad. But people are definitely taking action, and I think you see it a lot in the mobile commerce space as well. That you'll see people are buying and spending billions on the mobile internet as well. Email activity, of course, is probably still the killer app, both of the web and the mobile web. What's interesting about the mobile web and use of email is that email is the launching point for clicking on a link or going directly to a website. So as we're very aware that people spend a tremendous amount of time checking email and using email on their mobile devices, they're often clicking through on those email links and seeing websites that are being linked from those emails. And I think if you look at the total percent of your traffic that is coming from mobile, and you can do that looking at Google Analytics. There's a blog post actually on BlueTrainMobile.com that explains how to tell how much traffic you're getting. I think one thing that's important to know is that while you may have, let's say, a large and growing percent of your traffic on mobile devices, it is even more significant when you think about an email blast that you're sending out and how many of the folks that you're reaching are clicking from that email to view the mobile web. And so this is something that if you, for 10 or 15 your traffic on mobile web and use email blasts to an octave of people on your marketing list, on that day that you're actually sending that email blast out, you may actually have a really significant spike in mobile. If you are someone creating content for and doing email marketing, I'd say it's even more important to think about those spikes in mobile traffic that are likely to occur directly after an email campaign.
We also see a stat here about mobile advertising, which is continuing to grow significantly, whether it's display ads or it's quick, direct pay-per-click ad on mid networks as well. Some other stats that sort of really drive this home. Majority now of Facebook, Twitter, and mobile users using services via the mobile web. 83% penetration in the United States of Americans with smartphones, that growing rapidly. 87% of smartphone users are active on their device at least once per day to their the web or email, and significant increases in mobile search. And if you have not yet experimented, and you're someone out there who is using AdWords and you haven't yet experimented by specifically targeting mobile, this is a great time to think about making sure you have a mobile-friendly website or landing page, and that you're able to take advantage of some of the very attractive AdWords and pay-per-click opportunities for mobile search. This is just an interesting visual that shows the kind of land rush phenomenon that I was talking about earlier. That this shows the a graph, a time series of the growth of the mobile channel for Pandora, Twitter, and Facebook, and as you can see, it has exploded in the past couple of years. So now I want to switch gears and take a step back and talk a little bit more about mobile websites. So now that we've some statistics about the growth of the mobile web, the importance of the mobile web, I've set text to help us out mobile web as a major in technology that is significant as shifts from billboards and print ads to radio ads to TV to the internet. I now want to take a step for us to now think about mobile websites and how you create them, what your options are, and how you should think about them. So I'm going to start with this this graphic here, which you're probably wondering, what on earth does this have to do with mobile websites? And I'm going to explain kind of an analogy of how I like to think about mobile websites. So what we have here is a nice metaphor here with the goldfish of what seems to be a potentially easy framework or easy way for us to think about creating a mobile website. It's big fish, we have a little fish. Well, we have our main big website, our desktop website, and it seems, and it's very attractive for us to think, well, if we need a mobile site, we basically need to take the big version of it, the big fish, and we need to shrink it down and make something that looks pretty much like the existing site that we have, except it's smaller in every way. But actually the story is much more complicated than that. If you're really looking to create an effective mobile presence, you can't just think of it in the simple terms of shrinking down what you have. And I'm going to extend our metaphor a little bit to show you what I mean. So what we have pictured here is a 1967 Shelby GT500. So this is a really cool sports car of the 1950s. And the attributes, the brand attributes of this car are sporty and cool, and the functional attributes of this car are high performance and fast. So if I wanted to make a smaller version of this car, let's say that weighed less than 30 pounds and was only 3 feet long, I might think of doing something like this. It's a pedal car. This thing is under 30 pounds. It's only about 3 feet long. However, it does not meet our brand and functional requirements. If I tried to drive this to work across the city of Cambridge here in Massachusetts, it would take me probably a couple of hours to get to work, and I think I'd look pretty ridiculous. So you can't just shrink what you have and expect it to work. So let me show you a better way to meet our brand and functional requirements in a more compact way. So what we have here is a modern lightweight bicycle. This is actually useful at under 30 pounds and only 3 feet in length, and yet I've recreated the brand attributes of sporty and cool and the functional attributes of high performance and fast. So what does all this mean? The point that we're making here is that if you're trying to shrink down your website and make a smaller version of it, you can't just view it that simply. You really need to completely rethink its design and functionality so that you can achieve something that meets your brand and functional requirements on a website. And we're going to actually, in the coming slides and in our demo, we're going to show you some examples of some good mobile websites and some ones that are not very well implemented, and I think you'll get a good idea of how this analogy plays out when we actually look at how you can build mobile websites and what your options look like. So let's also talk about what is a mobile website, and just to clarify, typical workflow here is that your users would go to your .com address, the same, or you might have a .net or a .edu address. They go to your regular website address, and a mobile website typically, unlike an app which has to be downloaded from an app store, mobile website is accessible just using your browser on your smartphone, and you go to www. Whatever your domain is, .extension, and if you're on a mobile device, you will automatically see a mobile format version of your website. And that is generally how it works. Most of the sites have either some kind of redirect to the mobile version, or they're automatically just showing a mobile style sheet of your mobile site when you arrive on your regular web address. There are many advantages to mobile websites that can complement a mobile app, or that are better than a mobile app in terms of marketing. And I would also suggest or direct you to our blog. There's a specific post that addresses the question of and versus or when it comes to mobile sites and apps. But one of the big advantages that I'm illustrating here is that if you have a mobile website, you really don't need to worry about how people will find it, because they will automatically find it every time they come to your regular website address. They'll automatically see it. So now I want to share with you some options about how you can build a mobile website if you're interested in building one. And I'm going to sort of lay out what the various options look like, what are the technologies that are available, and also give my perspective on whether I think these are good or bad options for a typical marketer. I will share with you that this matrix is the result of probably several years of pretty detailed thinking that we put into mobile technologies, and not only is the recommendations, those of you who are in on the webinar, but also the same guidelines that we followed at BlueTrain to aid on what we felt the best approach for building mobile websites for our customers. So start telling you what the options are, and the options are either a hand-coded or custom-coded website. That means that when you build your mobile website, you're literally starting from scratch. Another alternative is to use a mobile style sheet over your existing content management system. So if you're on anything from WordPress to some of the major, larger CMSs, Red Dot, Percussion, Tentico, Electron, some of these offer some mobile style sheet options. There are transcoded websites. I'll explain what those are in a few minutes. There are some independent, what I would call do-it-yourself mobile website solutions out there. They're sort of cookie cutter. There is something called responsive design, and then finally there's a hybrid solution, which is the one that I would recommend. Let me tell you a little bit about the costs and benefits of each one. So hand-coded websites, I will just say that they're great if you are in a company like LinkedIn or Facebook because you'll be able to assign 5 to 10 engineers and designers to build something pretty incredible, but they're very expensive to build and very, very expensive to maintain as well. So this is not something that I would recommend unless you are in a very large company. Excuse me. Another option, as I said, is if you have a CMS, content management system, you could apply a mobile style sheet. The benefit is if you're a huge company with thousands of pages, you can effectively make most of those pages viewable on a mobile device very quickly. But there are many disadvantages to just using a mobile style sheet. Generally speaking, those sites are difficult to navigate because the style sheet does not incorporate a unique designed for mobile navigation system. Often the navigation might be similar to the navigation that exists on your existing site. Once you have a mobile formatted or style for your site, you don't get to benefit from built-in marketing features that are specific to mobile. Often your text is still going to be way too long, so an average website has about 250 to 400 words per page. Your images are still going to be too large or may take too load, so if you have many images on your website, they may fit within the form factor of a mobile because of the style sheet, but they will still be too big to load fast. So there are lots of problems with mobile style sheets. A transcoded website is typically a website that advertises that you can just build it in a minute. Excuse me. And it's very easy because typically with this type of a site, you would just put in your URL, and these companies claim that you're going to get a website by just putting in your URL, and it's going to automatically import and then what's called transcode or alter the style of your site to make it mobile formatted. These typically don't look very good. They are, if they're the kind of simple do-it-yourself sites, they're usually very difficult to navigate, and in many cases, there's still a huge amount of work that you need to do if you're on a higher-end transcoding solution, because you're going to have to pick specific pages or images that you want to view. For example, on a 400-word website, typically these solutions will ask you to select some text to view. And as folks who are working in content marketing, I think you would know that if you're on a 400-page website, web page, you can't just pick paragraph 1 and paragraph 3 and expect to get a cohesive message. So transcoding, I think, is a problematic approach that doesn't have a long future. There are the cookie cutter solutions out there. They're a great solution if you're the corner coffee shop and your budget is anywhere between looking for a free site and spending a cup of coffee per month or a few dollars a month. The problem is that you get what you pay for. These sites really are cookie cutter, and they're a great solution if you're trying to get something that's very inexpensive. There is some discussion about responsive design. I call these the Rolls-Royce of mobile sites. They will polish your shoes in the morning and serve you tea. The problem with responsive is that, as I joke here, they cost as much as a small country, and they take 9 months to a year to develop. And did I mention that you'd have to replace your existing site? Responsive design are websites that automatically reconfigure themselves based on what kind of device you're on. So if you're on a regular desktop, they render normally. If you go down to a small tablet form factor, you'll see images disappearing and text reformatting, and if you go onto a mobile site, they will be formatted for mobile sites. These are really great solutions for major publishers. For example, the Boston Globe has a new responsive design. They did a lot of custom work to build it. It was a significant investment. And if you're a newspaper, it's a great solution because you're looking to provide the exact same article with the exact same text to people in a variety of different formats. But as a marketer, responsive design is expensive, it's more customized, and it does require that you throw out your existing site and replace your entire infrastructure. So what we do recommend, and the way we built our own solution, is what I call a hybrid solution. And it mixes some of the best attributes of what's listed without some of the difficulties and challenges. And so a hybrid solution allows you to create pages that are completely custom to your brand and customized for your mobile audience. It means a page that is 400 words long can be reduced to 70 to 110 words for the mobile audience. An image that is too large can be replaced or removed by an image that is much smaller, not just that it renders on the mobile page, but actually that it also is smaller in file size, so it doesn't take long to download. And then the hybrid component is that content that is on your website that is frequently updated. For example, in a content management system, you might have news, events, you might have a calendar, you might have a directory of people. That kind of content that is updated frequently can automatically be fed using XML or RSS or a plugin to your CMS directly into your mobile website. So the hybrid solution enables you to do custom content copywriting and images for your mobile audience, but it all allows you to directly feed lots of content that is coming from your existing site that you will only have to update once, and when you update it on your main website, it will automatically flow onto your mobile website. So let me give you some examples of what this looks like in action. So here is a picture on the left side of the full-time MBA program at the Eastern University. And on the right side, you'll see the mobile version of that page. On the left, you're probably looking at least 200 to 400 words of content. There's a lot of other related information in the margins. But just the core content is quite lengthy. For a mobile user who's really looking to get to the information quickly and not have to scroll for a screen full of content, mobile version of this page in this example is nicely formatted into just a few key pieces of information that's useful. In this case, we also do provide a full site link for people who want more information, or if there's a bunch of additional information, you could also provide some navigation links within the full-time MBA on the mobile site to explore different elements of that program in more detail. But you're not overwhelming someone with 5 or 6 scrolling screenfuls of mobile content because the content has been tailored specifically to the mobile audience. Another attribute, of course, of mobile websites is that you want your desktop, once it's been optimized and for mobile, to be available on multiple devices. So if you are looking at a solution, you need to make sure that that solution is compatible with multiple devices. And I want to show you also kind of a before-after screenshot of what a website would look like before it's been optimized for mobile versus when it has been optimized for mobile. And going back to the Northeastern University example, here we can see the before shot with screen that is hard to see. Branding is lost. Too long on the right side is a very clear, legible website that's easy to view. I'm going to zip through some best practices recommendations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because I notice that we are running out of time, but this presentation will be available for you after the webinar, and you'll be able to go through this in more detail. We do have some best practices recommendations about how to write that's optimized for mobile, and I would encourage you to go through that here. Some ideas in a brief and how to format it for mobile. We also have some content here about how to really hook your visitors with the homepage, to really make sure that your mobile website homepage has the navigation and branding and messages and call to action that will ensure that it's successful. We also have a link on this page where you can read a full blog post on how to prioritize the content on your mobile website homepage, and we have a whole bunch of ideas that that you can peruse there that will give you an idea of what you might want to put on in terms of content on your mobile homepage. We also have some copywriting guidelines. As part of the follow-up to this webinar, we will be sending out not just a copy of this, but links to a copywriting template that you can use. Just to talk about this briefly, maybe you can return to this in more detail on your own time, but we set up a Microsoft Word template to write copy for mobile, where we're using a 15-point font size. We've, as you can see here, narrowed the margins to 4.5 inches wide, and this gives us a rough idea of how many words will fit across a mobile, typical mobile screen, and will give us an idea of how many paragraphs and how much content we should be writing. So typically we say 75 to 110 words in this example. This template allows you to quickly and easily create a lot of content for mobile and get a rough idea of how it's going to look or format on a mobile device. We also have some recommendations about conversion and how you can convert visitors to your mobile website into calls to action. There are various calls to action that are available. You can have mobile-friendly forms. You can also have one-click to call and one-click to email. And you can read some stats here about some users who are able to, or the results that you can expect if you have good calls to action on your mobile site. There are also some do's and don'ts of conversion tactics, which you can read in more detail. Some ideas and recommendations about how to create strong calls to action and effective designs. You'll find another link here to another piece of blog content where we do a deep dive on effective landing page design. So if this is of interest to you, we provide lots of examples and screenshots and visuals of good landing page designs and poor landing page designs, and give you some good feedback about how to create effective mobile landing page designs. There's also some content at the back where you can learn more about BlueTrain Mobile and our platform if you're interested in seeing that. But what I'd like to do now is just spend one moment just to show you a couple of mobile sites, and then we can go ahead and see if we can throw it open for some questions. So I'm going to start by showing you an example of a mobile site that has been built on our platform, which, as I mentioned, is kind of the hybrid approach to building a mobile website. On our platform, you have the choice of being able to create a visual, some calls to action, in these cases a couple quick links, There's a menu as well that allows you to navigate through your site. There's a nice home link that's available. I'm going to just show you a couple of sites in our mobile showcase. What I thought would be most interesting would be Northeastern University, which we saw in a variety of different contexts in the example in the webinar presentation. I'm going to show you two examples that highlight the idea of hybrid approach. The first is when I click on events, that this is a feed that comes directly off their content management system. So when Northeastern updates their events on their main web, it is automatically viewable on their mobile site, and they don't need to update that content in two places. So this actually is a feed from their Electron content management system. What I'll also show you is the other part of the hybrid, which is custom formatted content. So we'll go in as if we're a prospective student who's interested in an MBA program. Using our navigation, we're able to link 4 levels deep quickly and easily to find, for example, an evening MBA program. And here you can see an example of the kind of page that I was talking about that's been nicely formatted for the mobile audience with content that is short, very scannable, digestible on a mobile device, and of course allows people, if they want to learn more, to get access to additional information, but allows people quickly and easily to get what they need. One of the things I think you'll notice too on many mobile platforms that one of the hardest things to do well is to handle navigation. The way we handle it is we spend a huge amount of time thinking about how to build a clear and effective menu system that allows people to navigate to content that they're interested in finding. So if I'm, for example, interested in a master's degree, I can navigate in there. I can also go up in the navigation hierarchy to see events or faculty. And as I mentioned, it's very easy to go quite a few levels deep into a graduate program and see content that you're interested in. This is a nut that I would say that is pretty hard to crack, and I think there are plenty of examples of websites that don't do this well. So loading a copy of the Massport website here, which operates Logan Airport, for those of you who've flown in and out of Boston. And this is not an atypical experience of mobile websites that are not well done, that are not very well formatted, and that are difficult to navigate, very, very small text. Clearly, they built a mobile website, but in this particular case, navigation and content not very well formatted and not very effectively rendered for the mobile device. So I'm going to leave it there because I do want to leave some time for questions, and I'll just throw it open at this point to see if we can answer some questions.
Terrific, Steffan. That was really great data there, particularly in the end. You landed on some really juicy stuff, so thanks for that. We do have quite a few questions. We'll try to get to them quickly. We have maybe 5 or 10 minutes, and I have actually tweeted a bunch of questions as well. We could probably go on for an hour with my questions alone. But we'll get to some of your questions here first. Do you have any thoughts on HTML5? We had a couple questions on HTML5. Would you recommend coding mobile sites in HTML5 or native apps?
Yeah. So I would say that it is a good idea to consider coding your mobile websites in HTML5. It's definitely the direction that most of the devices and carriers are going in or already compatible with. So what we've discovered is that in the early days of BlueTrain Mobile, we were quite focused on making sure that we were compatible with older devices and BlackBerries and devices like that. What we discovered is that while people are quite concerned about users on older devices that can't really see HTML5 rendered content, in actuality they are not using the mobile web. So look at stats, as I mentioned earlier, we just don't see people on BlackBerry 5 devices using the mobile web. We don't see them coming to our site or our customers' sites as we look across the statistics on our network. So I would say definitely embrace HTML5 as a coding standard and use it, and just be aware that different devices render HTML5 differently.
Could you talk about mobile marketing? And it might be good to rapid-fire answers to these because there's so many questions.
Yeah.
Mobile marketing, is mobile marketing beneficial for the B2B marketplace?
That's a really interesting question. I would say one way to clearly answer that is to look at the % of your traffic coming on mobile devices. And I would, my short answer is yes. And that is that there are lots of contexts and scenarios where mobile marketing for B2B is effective, whether it's a customer who's trying to find a location or it's content that you're sending out that might be in social media or on your website or in your news or events or product information. What I think you'll find is even in the B2B context that business people are spending more time on mobile devices as they're traveling and are more mobile themselves, and that it's a good idea to consider mobile marketing even in the B2B context. And you always check the stats and see how fast your audience is when you send out email campaigns and looking at the analytics on your website.
Could you talk about analytics a little bit and how you track this? Is Google plugged into this with their Google? Is Google Analytics plugged into mobile application?
Yeah, absolutely. Using
and
a
more
standard
specifically
Google,
the pathways. Yeah. Can you separate analytics data from desktop users versus browser users? And if you set your site up with a Mobi site, can you track analytics data on for example, in your Northeastern example, how many people are visiting Find Us versus events versus faculty? Can you talk about the analytics flow?
Yeah. There are two relevant ways you can think about analytics and the mobile web. First is if you don't have a mobile website, it's a good idea to go in, and as I said, we'll send out a link after the webinar about a post about how you can view the % of your traffic on mobile and what they're doing on your website. What you'll find is they have a very high bounce rate, and there's an opportunity for you to look at and just see how many people are at least trying to access your site on mobile. If you do set up a mobile website, you can typically set up dedicated analytics. So using Google, you set up a new instance of analytics, and then you'll get dedicated data just for that mobile site, where people are coming from, what content they're looking at, how long they're staying, what walks they're taking, and I'd recommend setting up separate analytics for your mobile site.
Got it. And somebody wanted to know, is there a way to tell, if there's a way for you to know if someone is viewing your site using an iPhone versus an Android?
Yes. If you use something like, and I mentioned Google Analytics a bunch of times, but if you are using Google Analytics as an example, that analytics will actually tell you what devices and what operating systems they're on. You may not know one Android device from another, but you'll be able to tell how many people are coming on Android versus BlackBerry versus Nokia or Microsoft.
We're getting crazy echoes now that I'm talking, just so you know. I don't know if you could change anything on your end if you have a microphone hooked up to your speaker.
I will try and do that, yeah.
Yeah, you might want to just back that down a little bit. I think it's got a crazy echo. So another question was, can you talk a little bit about bullet point? This example that's on your screen right now is a very good example of what I would view as a lot of wasted space. You can see the Find Us button, right, and how there's a lot of wasted space to the right of the Find Us. It seems to me that mobile is a lot about maximizing the space on a page. Mm-hmm. Is there any revelation happening, with the design element of like if that Find Us button could be a lot shorter and you could stagger the lengths of those buttons, it would actually give you more room to have more text on the center part of that page. Can you talk about that and the confined space that you're really working in and how that is, if there's anything progressive happening with maximizing the space in a very small screen?
Sure. In this particular case, and this is actually built on our platform, this was the design that the customer really wanted to go with because they wanted and this is obviously based on their design preferences, they wanted a view of that would provide them with this very attractive campus kind of image in the background. But in a good mobile website platform, whether it's BlueTrain Mobile or it's another platform, you really have ideally as much creative freedom as you want to be able to do a custom look and feel or brand that really matches what you're looking to create. So if I just go back for a moment and we can have a quick look at one of these screens here, which I'll just throw up, shows quite a diversity of designs. So on the left side, you can see a large focus image where you've got a couple of navigation buttons on the bottom. Even more sparse was this very large picture of a dentist in one of the dental practice websites that you can see second from the right. But ideally, a mobile website platform should provide you with the creative freedom that you have to be able to use as much of the space as you would like to, whether it's text or images.
Mm-hmm. And by the way, I can't think of a better homepage for that particular dentist's office that you showed there. It was request an appointment, request an appointment, get directions, or call. It's like, thank you. That's about the only three things I would probably want from my dentist. Thank you for giving it to me square up. Let's go to some of these other. I'm just going to read a couple questions for you maybe, and then you can choose which final question you want to answer, because we're about 10 pages over. But some of the questions that I had were, could you show us an example of the kind of responsive type mobile solution that will shine our shoes? Right? Like, what are really cool web, mobile sites that you've looked at that just completely blow you away? Love to get that. I wanted to crowdsource to the fans actually out there that are listening in. What's the best mobile site that's packed with cool content? If anybody wants to throw that in really quickly while Steffan is answering this final question, I will list some mobile sites that you should go check out. I think that was an interesting question. What's your favorite?
Let me just say, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn are all, they're customs, but they're awesome sites. They're sites that are really forward-looking. They're really on the cutting edge of UI and design, and done a great job. I think that it's not that we're all going to be able to build websites like these sites, but I think that we've taken inspiration and taken a lot of our UI by looking at some of these designs and building them in. So I definitely think, in the example of Facebook, we're using a very similar menu icon, and we've gone through usability testing that has led us in a direction. So I would point out as mobile sites really blow me away.
And could you show some others? So you LinkedIn, Facebook. Any other favorites you have?
I mentioned Twitter as well. These are obviously really great examples, and those are the ones that really came to mind as I was preparing. They've done an excellent job. I would say I do like the Boston Globe website a lot. I mentioned that earlier. They're another firm. All of these that I've mentioned have put a huge amount of time and energy into building custom mobile websites that I think are really on the cutting edge.
Beth had an interesting question here as we tail out. I bought a program that has WordPress themes for mobile to build mobile website. Was that an idea?
So WordPress, I think, provides, in our opinion, a good solution, not an ideal solution, a good solution for building a mobile formatted style sheet. I think that there are several things in a platform dedicated mobile web platform that would provide an advantage over web. For example, some of the integrated mobile marketing, the ability to build specific mobile marketing formatted landing pages, integrating it more with your advertising and email campaigns, better use of mobile forms, some dedicated mobile marketing and mobile web features. But if you're looking for a simple solution, you know, a WordPress mobile style sheet can provide you with a relatively inexpensive and simple way of setting up a mobile website. It may not be the prettiest version, it may not be as easy to navigate, it may not have some of the bells and whistles for marketing, but it'll be functional.
Hey, I got a really good question that just came in from somebody, and thanks for that. They tweeted it to me at Byron White, and by the way, thanks everyone for any feedback you could offer at Byron White. I really appreciate the feedback for these webinars. But someone asked, what about e-commerce? Any data on how sites are selling online as opposed to just providing information? Any data on that for us, Steffan?
Yeah, I would recommend you go to, there's a Mobile Commerce Daily website, if you Google that, that has really outstanding stats on the growth of mobile commerce. There are a whole set of vendors that are set up to do nothing but catalog e-commerce for mobile. And Mobile Commerce Daily will provide you with lots of links and information for that.
Very good. Well, we're about 15 minutes over today. I want to thank everybody for listening in. Thank you so much, Steffan, for being on the show today as well.
Thank you. It was a pleasure, and thanks for having us on. Until
next month, everybody, I hope you're a little bit more wiser when it comes to mobile and more knowledgeable to go mobile or go home. That's the conclusion that we'll probably leave with today. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next month.